Well, we've had a really informative couple of days here with a fantastic list of speakers. And I have the privilege of introducing our final speaker of the conference, Penny Lewandowski. Some of you may know her. She has worked with the Edward Lowe Foundation since 2006. One of the biggest programs that I know of that promotes entrepreneurship in the state of Colorado is the Colorado's Company to Watch, which she helped bring to the state. She is basically in charge of all entrepreneurial programs at the Edward Lowe Foundation. Before that, she worked for the Baltimore Technology Center. She also worked with George Mason University, Kauffman Foundation. She received the Kauffman Foundation Ernst & Young Entrepreneur Supporter of the Year previously. I can think of no better person to wrap up this conference and talk about the passion that goes into leadership. And the best part about it is when we talk about courage to drive change, we're actually going to change up her presentation a little bit, and she's going to talk to us about crazy leadership. So please help me welcome Penny Lewandowski.
So first of all, I want to thank everybody for hanging in at the end. It's kind of tough sometimes being the last speaker. And I've been really excited to talk to you guys today. And I've been really excited because there's something that's been bothering me. And so I wanted this opportunity to get it out of my head and get it into your heads, and so now it can bother you too. I mean, I think that's kind of what friends are for, right? So here's the deal. So I went to an economic development conference and I attended a panel, and it was about turnaround stories. So things that had happened in communities that were really tough. And so at the end of the panel, the facilitator said to all the panelists, what's that one thing that you would like to leave with the audience? So this one panelist said that his one thing was that you had to hit bottom in order to drive substantive change. I want you to think about that. You had to hit bottom in order to drive substantive change. And I remember when I heard that, I thought, holy crap. I mean, this is what has to happen for us to do something really different. And if that's the case, then what about those times when things are, going pretty well? Does that mean we're just satisfied with the status quo and we say, oh, that's cool. We're just going to kind of take it as it is. And so what I want to talk to you about today is, number one, is that true, that you have to hit bottom? And number two, and probably more importantly, is what kind of leaders do we need in our communities to drive change, whether things are going well or things are challenging? But I want to go back to this hitting the bottom example, mostly because I really like that picture, but I want to go back to this hitting the bottom example because I do understand what the panelist was talking about. So there are times when we are in great pain, either as individuals or communities, and man, oh man, the last thing we want to do is something different. It's like, it already hurts so bad, don't make me change. But then I think what happens is the pain gets so bad that we're like, I'll do anything. I'll change, put the leech on my head. I mean, whatever I have to do to change, make this pain go away. And in that kind of situation, it's going to take a leader who is willing to stick his or her neck out to do something really different. They're going to have to be a little bit crazy. But what about those times when things are going well? Like, our community might have a couple of challenges, but overall things are pretty daggone good. So in that situation, what makes us stand up and rock the boat? So what makes us stand up in the middle of things that are going really well and say, this isn't enough, we need to do more. We need to take it up to the next level. In that situation, it's going to take a leader who is willing to stick his or her neck out to do something entirely different. They're going to have to be a little bit crazy. And so that's part of what we've been talking about the last couple of days. We've been talking about leaders. We've been talking about and hearing from leaders in Colorado that push us to get out of our comfort zone and be better and better still. We've been here to talk about the crazy ones.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So I love this quote from Steve Jobs. So I go around the United States and I talk to people about developing an entrepreneurial culture. And I say, some of these things you're going to do to develop a new kind of culture are going to look weird. And people are going to say you're weird. And that's never something anybody wants to hear. But then when I heard this quote, I thought, this is what I've been talking about, man. I've been talking about the crazy ones. And so I've probably watched this video, I'll bet you 20 times, and every single time it gives me chills. And I hope it does the same thing for you, and that you'll watch it again and again. And that after a while, you're going to start to see yourself in that video, because you don't have to be a Martin Luther King or a Gandhi or Amelia Earhart to be one of the crazy ones. You just have to be willing to go first. And so I'm a big Seth Godin fan, and he started a blog with this statement, "You look ridiculous in that outfit." And he said that something new is always used first by people who are willing to look ridiculous. And he went on to say that culture changes on the basis of one simple question. Would somebody like me do something like that? So if you think about that, when you're starting to make changes in your communities, your citizens are looking at you and you're thinking, would I do that? And a lot of times they're going to say no. And they're going to wait. And that's why most times it takes a very long time for something to be an overnight success. People who go first are people who care. People who go first are on the journey to become one of the crazy ones. And so now that I think that we've talked a little bit about what it takes to be one of the crazy ones, I want to step back for just a minute, and I want to talk about what kind of leaders that we will become. Because the state of your community, whether things are going really well or not so great, that's not what defines what kind of leader you are. Whether you're in a very small rural area or a great big urban area doesn't define what kind of a leader you are. That choice is absolutely yours. You decide what kind of leader you're going to be in your communities. So you're going to be the kind of leader that keeps pushing things forward. Are you going to be that kind of leader that says no a lot? And there's a book that I really like. It's Jane Jacobs, The Death and Life of Great American Cities. And she talks about a particular kind of leader, and she calls them squelchers. And here's what she says. She says, squelchers are the kind of leaders that use the word no a lot. They constantly put up roadblocks in the way of community energy and initiatives. And I have kind of a funny story about this quote. So I was facilitating a group of folks, and I used this quote. And there's this one guy, he was shaking his head, and he rolled his eyes, and he said, you know, that quote's no good. I'm like, what do you mean the quote's no good? And he said, that book was written back in the 60s. It's too old. That quote's no good. And I thought, oh, my goodness. He's a squelcher who's squelching the quote about the squelchers. I mean, it was absolutely dizzying. And I'm sure you've had that experience in your communities. You've come up with something different, and somebody said, oh, that's not going to work, that doesn't make any sense, or they say nasty things about you. And it's kind of interesting, those of us who have been dropped down into communities to make change, or in communities to make change, when we get together, we tell war stories. And we talk about what the press did or did not project. We talk about the things that people said about us. And don't get me wrong, these aren't wine sessions. I mean, we wear these opportunities as a badge of courage to be one of the crazy ones. And I've been fortunate in my career to be surrounded by a lot of these kind of folks, and I'm going to tell you the story about 3 of them. One of them comes out of a community that was in real trouble. Second one, part of the community was doing pretty well, the other part not so great. And the third, the community was already very successful. So here's the first one, hometown boy, Chris Gibbons, Littleton, Colorado. So there for a while, things were pretty peachy in Colorado. They were going really well. They'd recruited Martin Marietta in. And then after several years, something happened. And Martin Marietta pulled out 7,000 jobs. So you can only imagine what that did to that area. Maybe you lived through that. And so the city of Littleton said, we're not going to do things the same way. We're not going to keep paying all these incentives. What we're going to do is we're going to grow from within, and we're going to do things that make our companies successful. And in 20 years, they doubled their job base and they tripled their sales tax revenue, and that was the beginning of economic gardening. And so now the foundation, together with Chris, we go all over the US and we talk about this, and man, some people get like so excited, and other people kind of give us, you know, that look you get like, you know, where we can tell, you know, that they think we're a little bit crazy. But today, economic gardening is becoming a mainstay in economic development. That was Chris's dream. He's a little crazy that way. So here's another gal, Wendy Dant Chesser. So Wendy used to run Cornerstone Alliance in Southwest Michigan. And this is a really interesting area because part of it is St. Joe, which is a really lovely, prosperous lakeside town, and the other part is Benton Harbor, which has really been long plagued by economic and racial issues. And so Cornerstone had an idea of a mixed-use project called Harbor Shores. And they started talking about this. And you would not believe the resistance they got, most particularly from the area that wasn't doing so well. Remember that? Great pain, don't want to change. And so Wendy was called crazy, and unfortunately a whole lot worse. She never gave up. Her courage never wavered, and today Harbor Shores is a reality. And so it has a housing development, and it has a Jack Nicklaus signature 18-hole golf course, and every year they host the PGA Senior Tournament. Wendy knew Harbor Shores would make a difference. She's a little crazy that way. So my last example is a guy named Elton Revis, and I am a huge Elton fan. And Elton loves where he lives. He lives in Jacksonville, Florida. But Elton dreamed of living a place that was known for a really cool entrepreneurial culture, cool entrepreneurial vibe, and Jacksonville didn't have that. So he and some of his buddies got together and they started something called One Spark, and it's a crowdfunding festival. And people didn't get it. It sounded kind of weird. I mean, at first I didn't get it either. But it was really interesting. They just finished their 3rd year, and they attracted 320,000 people to downtown Jacksonville and had 229 creators. 320,000 people. That was more people than Jacksonville had when they hosted the Super Bowl. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And so just imagine what that did for the people who were into downtown development and the entrepreneurs who wanted to be in this cool, funky place. One Spark became an economic engine. Elton is seldom satisfied with the status quo. He's a little bit crazy that way. So these are just 3 examples. There are thousands of people and thousands of communities that have made all kinds of changes. And there's something that's interesting that has happened to me today as I've waited to be your last speaker and got to tell you these stories. I feel better. So I don't feel so bothered anymore. I do not believe that you have to hit bottom in order to drive substantive change. And I believe that you have the power to make a difference. So there's a song that I came across just on my iPad, you know how Pandora, you know how you're listening, all of a sudden a new song crops up you've never heard. And it's a song by Patti Smith called People Have the Power. And here's what she sings, and don't worry, I'm not going to sing a heaven forbid, but here's what she says. She says, I believe everything we dream can come to pass through our union. We can turn the world around. We can turn the Earth's revolution. People have the power to dream, to rule. People have the power. And that's what I want you to walk away with today. You have the power to make dreams a reality, to turn the world around, to push what is to what could be. You have the power to be crazy. Thank you.
So just a couple closing comments, and then we can be on our way. I want to thank everybody for attending today. I can't thank the board enough for the work they've done throughout the year. I want to go back to something that I talked about this morning, and we have 13 or 14 new people who are running for the board. We have all of you in this room who are here because you believe in your communities, you believe in economic development, you are champions of your communities, and we're really, really excited about some of the programming that we're going to be bringing to you next year. We're going to be, we're talking about some local regional initiatives, so we'll be bringing those to you soon. But again, all of this work is done by volunteers, and I can't think of anyone who's put in more work this year than our conference chair and our vice chair, Kelly Flanagan. So I'll have you come up with some closing comments.
Thank you. I wanted to give you content today, so I hope that you feel inspired and like you learned something, you weren't just waiting for lunch, so I hope that happened. I also just want to thank the team that helped me put the conference together. Great committee. Melody, thank you so much for all of your help. I'm excited about Drive, Lead, Succeed. I feel inspired by it, which was kind of the goal 3 years ago when we said we were going to do this. So now I'm guessing that you want to know how your community can host our next conference. So if you're thinking about that, we would love to get proposals from your cities. You can call me or email me, and we would like to think about how we could do that for you. I'm sorry, I'm awkward with this. So now I want to give you my real closing remarks, because I thought about things through the last couple days and tried to think about how do I leave you inspired instead of just saying, you know, thank you for coming and have a nice weekend. So I thought about a few things and a few themes that seem to go through the conference, and I thought about how we collaborate. And maybe the idea that Dave talked about defensing, you know, maybe that has something to do with the rise in co-working and wanting to be together. And maybe we really do want to collaborate, not only in our neighborhoods, but in our workplaces. And I thought about Matt, and I thought about all the what ifs, and I thought about what if our communities can all reach the potential? What if this organization can reach that potential? And how great that would be. And then I thought about what are the action items that we would do. And my group, they're not all here right now, but they were awesome. And we had our 3 actions that I think would work for everybody. And we thought we really needed to play and sit on the table. And we really need to create space to enjoy our coworkers and our families and our lives. And maybe we need to create space to buy ourselves 30 more minutes on that deadline. And then let's not get together to just be a support system when we're mad and sad and griping about something. Let's rejoice. Let's rejoice in the things that we do and our accomplishments. And let's leverage our relationships. And then I started to also think about, we always talk about this disconnect between rural economic development and urban economic development. And here we are, and we're in suburban Denver, and we're talking about all of these principles and all these ideas. And I drive home to my hometown in Idaho Springs, which is a pretty rural community, and check the mail and get dated September 30th, the Clear Creek Current. The cover story is about a young DJ who puts a spin on his future. Now, how perfect is this? So this is the mayor of Idaho Springs, who was at an Elks Club dinner, and she looks over, and this 15-year-old boy, just not invited to the Elks Lodge, no surprise probably, and a weird place for him to be, and he just starts unpacking his turntables and just starts playing music for this party. Now, that's brave. I would never have done that at 15, and I would not do that today either. And so then she was thinking she had a party, a city event, a city function, and so she called him, and she asked him if he would bring his turntables and if he would play and if he would like to get paid and do this at a city party. Now that's pretty cool. And the great thing that he says is, I started working when I was 15. In my opinion, it helps teach me to be responsible, gets me off the street, and keeps me out of trouble. Now, he's 15 and he's doing that by himself, and the city created a safe place for him to try. We can all do that. We can do that in small communities. We can do that in urban communities. We can elevate our leaders from within our organizations and within our community, and that is inspiring. So I hope that you leave today and you think about this 15-year-old boy in Idaho Springs, and you think about the 15-year-old boy in your town, your kids, your friends, the guy on the street, and you talk about the ways that you can inspire them to develop change. People drive economic prosperity. And together we drive, lead, succeed. So thank you very much for joining us this year, this conference, our 3rd annual. I wish you all the very best and can't wait to hear about your successes in the future. Thank you very much.